How's it going, you? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to Dreadit, the official horror subreddit. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so the premise today is really simple. I'm just going to scroll through r/horror, which is the official horror subreddit, and if any posts catch my attention or pose an interesting question, I will click on them and I'll answer them. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first up from user goodboy9595. They say, how do you consider Silent Hill as a movie? They say, I don't know why some people criticize so badly the movie. In the end, the entire plot was focused on the revenge of a girl burned alive by an evil cult. Different from the video game, Pyramid Head is a deity who gives punishment to people that deserve it. There are worse movies than this. I absolutely agree. There are much worse movies than this. As far as video game adaptations go, this one's actually pretty good, especially if you consider the fact that there are multiple Silent Hill universes. This one is incredibly atmospheric. They also use practical effects in this movie, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, they kind of take a shit on those effects though with some CGI, and I'm talking specifically about the Grey Children. I'll put a picture up of the practical dummy that they use, and then I'll try and find what they look like after the CGI is imposed on them. The practical effect looks so good. It's so viscerally haunting. Yeah, back to the question, Silent Hill as a movie, I actually think is pretty good. It's one of my favorite early 2000s horror movies. I think that it captures the industrial, spooky atmosphere of the games really well. But that's only if you look at it as its own thing and not directly connected to the games. Moving on, we have here by user Vamptober, which final girl is superior? And then it has a ton of final girls listed. I'll read a few. We have Sydney Prescott, Laurie Strode, Nancy Thompson, Alice Hardy, Sally Hardesty, Ellen Ripley, Gail Weathers, Vanita Brock, Grace Ladomas, Tina Shepard, Clear Rivers, Kirsty Cotton, Ziggy Berman, so many more. I am just gonna say outright, I think Ellen Ripley is the most badass final girl, and I think Sydney Prescott is my favorite final girl. Sydney Prescott has gone through a lot, and just like they cover in Scream 6, she deserves her happy ending more than most final girls, to be completely honest. So while I would like to see her return for Scream 7, I don't think it's very likely, but if it does happen, I hope that it merits her presence in that movie. Next up from user The Wompster. Most people say watching movies in theaters is better. But what's a horror movie that's better to watch at home? Okay, I have an interesting take for this one because the movie that I'm about to say never actually released in theaters. But I do think it's a horror movie with almost a very cozy atmosphere to it, and so it's better fit to be watched at home. And that is Trick or Treat. I believe it came out in 2009. It's Michael Daugherty. Funnily enough, directed Godzilla. But yeah, I do think that this movie benefits from being a home watch because cuddling up in like your favorite Halloween blanket and drinking some pumpkin spice coffee, watching this movie, you will never get a better Halloween feeling in your life. Next up from user August__Walker. Have you guys ever taken a tea break from horror? I have taken a tolerance break from horror, but it really didn't do anything, to be completely honest. Now, I'm completely desensitized to horror movies, and I have been since I was like maybe 15, but I did take an unintentional tea break for about a year when it came to horror, and when I got back into it, it still didn't feel scary to me. Now, I have felt unnerved a couple of times. Most recently, I would say the movie Skinamarink really did it for me. It really put me on edge, and that's just because I could kind of relate to the kids' experience in that movie. I felt very connected to the characters. I would say while I'm still able to get unnerved or uneasy, I don't really get scared anymore. This may be different for other people though. I can definitely see somebody who's not desensitized to horror taking a break, getting back into it, and still experiencing the terror that the movies are supposed to inflict. But I think as soon as you get desensitized to the horror, that might just be permanent status. I'm no psychologist though, so take my words with a grain of salt because I could be completely wrong about that. From user Formal Progress 5703, is there a masculine term for final girl? In my opinion, no. Even when the final girl is a guy, I still refer to him as the final girl. In my opinion, that's just the term that you use for the person who's last surviving. It rolls off the tongue so nicely. I mean, they have some really great recommendations here. There isn't an established one. They have some suggestions. Last Lad, Final Fellow, Single Son, Deadent Dude. I love Deadent Dude. That's great. Sir Still Alive, Breathing Bro. Oh, and here from Devs, we have Survivor. These are all fantastic suggestions, but for me personally, I just stick with Final Girl. My favorite male Final Girl is Ashley Williams from The Evil Dead. Ooh, this one is really interesting. This is from user Sharky1500, and it says the 2010 reboot of A Nightmare on Elm Street isn't half as bad as people say it is. This is a hot take in my opinion. Now, I used to love this movie. In fact, I think this might have been my introduction into the Nightmare on Elm Street universe, but now that I've seen all of them, I really do think that the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street has lost all charm that the originals presented. First of all, I think it's boring. I don't think there's much that it brings to the table that makes me more intrigued to see it. It is a darker take on the classic Nightmare on Elm Street. Jackie Earle Haley plays Freddy Krueger in this one. He was nowhere near as funny as Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger, but I think that's what makes Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger so unique, is that he is a scary villain, but he's there to crack jokes and kind of be upbeat because he's not really scared of anything. I was just so lost in translation with Jackie Earle Haley, and I hate that they confirmed that he was a child molester. Yes, that was part of Wes Craven's original idea for the character, but it was never fully confirmed. I think that in and of itself holds a lot more horror to it than actually just putting it out there that Freddy Krueger sexually abused children. I find that to be very on the nose and very unnecessary. Second of all, I think the performances in this movie weren't that good. I think most of them were pretty bad. I think the only two that were excusable were Kyle Garner as Quentin and Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger. Now, while I didn't love this interpretation of Freddy Krueger, I do think that Jackie Earle Haley did really well with what he was given in terms of script and the idea for this darker Freddy Krueger. So yeah, all in all, I just think that this one took the charm that the 1984 Wes Craven film had and just sucked it dry. It just felt so bland, so boring. So I do think that it is a bad movie, but if you enjoy this movie, that's totally alright. I do relate in some way because I also used to enjoy this movie. Oh, I really like this one. This is from user GF120581. It says, "It's funny how all these years and all these sequels later, how many people never realize the main villain in Hellraiser is not Pinhead or any of the Cenobites, it's Frank Cotton." Wow, this is actually pretty eye-opening, because it's true, in the original movie, you don't get a lot of time with the Cenobite. It might be 5 minutes, or maybe a little less, a little more. And the only other sequels I've seen are Hellraiser 2, and then this newer one that came out last year, the 2022 Hulu reboot. I did like the 2022 reboot. I thought that it was a really fun reimagining of the original idea. But you were so right, Frank really is the villain in the original one. You get so much more screen time with Frank than you do with the Cenobite. I would actually love to see another Hellraiser movie centered around Frank, because he really was a scary villain, or a villain like Frank at the very least, because that idea was phenomenally executed in the original Hellraiser movie, and I feel like we haven't really gotten that since. So thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, because that is a big reason why there's so much charm in the first one, is that you get the monsters for a few minutes in the movie, but Frank is the real villain. I hope to see another Hellraiser movie kind of incorporate that idea. That would be great. From user Rachel the Librarian, they say, "Newish to the genre, looking for ideas." In this post, they talk about how they're new to the genre and that they've been checking out the classics, but their favorite so far is Hereditary and they want more recommendations like it. Rachel the Librarian, check out Midsummer. It's by the same director and it has a very scary atmosphere. It's a folk horror movie. There's little to no jump scares in the movie, but it is very unsettling. Another one I might recommend is The Wicker Man. So this one is also a folk horror, just like Midsummer, and this one doesn't really have any jump scares. The idea is a Christian police officer goes to a pagan island and has to investigate for a missing child, creating this very unsettling atmosphere, but it is such a fun watch. One of my favorite horror characters of all time, Lord Summerisle, is in this movie, so definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. And maybe the last one or two I would recommend are The Babadook and or Trick or Treat. The Babadook is a large reason why art house horror kicked off, and Trick or Treat is more of a Halloween-like movie. There's not a lot of jump scares. Imagine if Halloween, the holiday, just kind of threw up on a movie. You get this. It's an anthology horror movie. You get 5 different stories told, and it is so well executed and just a really fun watch. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you so much. Please remember to like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach a goal of 50 subscribers, so if you could help me out there, that would mean so much to me, and we will catch you in the next one.